So this is a summary for Key Concept 3.1. Roman numeral 1 states that improved transportation technologies and commercial practices led to an increased volume of trade and expanded the geographical range of existing and newly active trade networks. So the trade routes such as the Trans-Saharan, African, the Mediterranean, and the Silk Road, they all flourished together as a result of the spread of new innovations, ideas, and goods. And with time, new trade cities were established along these trade routes. And some well-known trade cities include Timbuktu, Hangzhou, and Malacca. And new means of communication networks were also formed, such as the road system that the Incas established for their own efficient travel across the Andes Mountains. Also in Mesoamerica, the Aztecs began to participate in more modernized trades. This was because they started to trade more luxury items. And also new navigational technologies such as the magnetic compass from China helped facilitate trade in all these regions. And new forms of currency were also introduced, and this called for the setup of banking houses along the Silk Roads. And paper money was also encouraged because it was easier to trade. Roman numeral 2 states that the movement of people caused environmental and linguistic effects. So an increase in migration and the long-distance trade affected the ultimate growth of innovations and languages itself. And due to these changes, new technological advancements had to be set in place to flow with everything else. And for example, the Vikings created a new type of ship called the longship so that they could travel on different types of waters. So this is an example of how new technologies had to be created to overcome obstacles. Likewise, in the Sahara, camels were used for their own efficient transportation. And in Central Asia and South America, horses ended up being more utilized. And in terms of migration, the Bantu people migrated to sub-Saharan Africa, and with them they brought new iron tools, and they brought new languages, which also resulted in the language of Swahili, and their own agricultural ideas and techniques. And the Polynesians came from East Asia, and they migrated to islands surrounding Hawaii, and they introduced new animals such as pigs and new plants and crops. Roman numeral 3 states that cross-cultural exchange were fostered by the intensification of existing or the creation of new networks of trade and communication. So new forms of communication and trade overall allowed for cultures to expand more quickly and efficiently. A very important cultural exchange during this time was the spread of Islam from the Arabian Peninsula all the way to Africa and regions throughout Eurasia. So this was a result of the work of missionaries, merchants, and military conquests. Other religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Zoroastrianism influenced Islam as it continued to spread. For example, the Sogdian merchants would set up communities along Central Asia, and they would spread their customs in that area. There was also the Jewish communities along the Silk Road, the Mediterranean, Indian Ocean basin, and there were the Muslims in the Indian Ocean region. Explorers such as Ibn Battuta and Marco Polo sailed along the seas to learn more about these regions as they were growing accustomed to all the new changes. Roman numeral 4 states that there was a continued diffusion of crops and pathogens, including epidemic diseases such as the bubonic plague, along the various trade routes. So crops such as sugar, cotton, and citrus were commonly spread during this time. And along with these crops, diseases and pathogens spread among the trade routes. So the bubonic plague was spread by fleas on rats that traveled on ships and caravans, primarily because the Mongols had a lack of knowledge and they didn't realize what was going on. And this disease outbreak killed off nearly a third of the overall population.